Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's Laces Out Podcast, our NFL podcast. Obviously, we've got to address the elephant in the room, and that's the fact that there's no guest this week. I go into great detail as to why that is, but spoilers, look out for upcoming Laces Out podcasts, because special guests are en route. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Obviously the big one, the one that helps us the most, is sharing the podcast around. If you are a fan of the NFL and you know someone else who's a fan, maybe slide this podcast in their direction and hopefully they will enjoy it too. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast, Laces Out.
Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is your friendly faces here at the CookieCast Podcast Network. Just two faces, just myself and Mr. Cook, which means, sadly, we weren't able to get the guest.
Now,
secure the guest slot.
This is the section of the podcast that I like to call the guest defense. It's like a legal term. In my defense, Your Honor, I am in the process of securing not one, but two of the finest podcast guests you could ever hope for. It's just taken a little bit of time to eke out the finer details, sign a couple of contracts, decide on monetary amount, whether it's zero or whether they pay us, decide on that later. But big cogs are turning. What that means, ladies and gents, is I can only do so much between, being a less than part-time parent and podcast general dictator, shall we say? So yes, the shortest version of that story is there is no guest. Again.
We make it work though. The lack of guests is not something that would hamper this particular podcast. We step up, we overcome, we adapt, and we bring to you quality content for your ear and eye holes. But yes, welcome on, ladies and gentlemen. It's your NFL Laces Out podcast. Week 8 roundup, Week 9 predictions, and we will start with the Week 8 roundup. Now, obviously, myself, Mr. Cook, and our guest last week, Mrs. Amy Williams, provided our picks for the 16 games that were being played last week. No teams on bye, just for Week 8. Don't worry, we'll get to that in Week 9, as there are 2 teams on the bye this week. So, 16 games in total. As we covered last week on the podcast, myself and Mr. Cook had predicted the exact same way for those 16 games, so we needed a tiebreaker in the event that our results were the winners. And seeing as how Mrs. Amy Williams only got 7 of her 16 predictions correct, sadly, she did not win. So the 7 teams that she did get correct, she correctly predicted the Lions to beat the Titans, Texans to beat the Colts, Packers to beat the Jags, Falcons to beat the Buccaneers, the Chiefs to beat the Raiders, the 49ers to beat the Cowboys, and the Steelers to beat the Giants. Everything else, sadly, she was incorrect on. So 7 out of 16. Which meant that myself and Mr. Cook tied, as we always knew we were going to, with 12 of 16 selections correct. The 4 teams that let us both down were the Vikings not beating the Rams, the Ravens not beating the Browns, surprisingly, the Jets not beating the Patriots, equally as surprisingly, possibly, and the Buccaneers. We both had the Buccaneers to beat the Falcons, and sadly that did not transpire. So, to get the point this week, we had set a tiebreaker, which, as we needed, I believe, in week 2. Yes, week 2, it was total points scored in a particular game. So for this week, we did the same principle, and we picked the Cowboys 49ers game. Now, I believe this one finished 30-24 in favour of the San Francisco 49ers. So 54 points was the total points in the game. I had predicted that I thought there would be 47 points in that game. Mr. Cook predicted 56. Very, very well done, Mr. Cook. He gets the bonus point and gets the point for the predictions this week. And he is having an absolute rip-roarious laugh along to himself. That one seemed to tickle you a little bit there.
Honestly, the listener and our watcher does not know the trials and tribulations we've been through this evening to be at this point now. And honestly, any win at this point just feels like the biggest victory. You know, you're absolutely crushing it in life, because honestly, life does seem to be crushing me and our collective podcast endeavors a lot at the moment. So any win, yeah, it's like scaling a mountain. So yeah, I'm almost.
So yes, that win gives Andy 4 points for the season so far. I also have 4 points for the season so far. But what am I saying here? Mr. Cook has a little asterisk right next to his 4. And that is, of course, because in week 6, I believe, he correctly predicted 14 of 14 games correct. So that gives him currently the tiebreaker in the event there is a tie. Now, we also did side bet picks in week 8.
I am less confident about the side bet, because I was sat with the stats mistress on Sunday and I went, son of a, I'm pretty sure that game that did not go the way I thought it was going to was one of my side bet picks. And if I have a horrible feeling it was the Ravens-Browns game.
Well, we'll come to it. So we're on a streak of 2 weeks in a row where neither of us have got any of these incorrect. So Andy finds himself on 20 points from a possible 28. I found myself on 21 points from a possible 28. Andy started the week by picking the Chiefs to beat the Raiders. Gets himself a point. He also has the Steelers to beat the Giants. Gets himself a point. He correctly stated that he did have the Ravens to beat the Browns. So unfortunately, that streak is now over. And it doesn't get any better in the fact that he had the Vikings to beat the Rams, which only gives him 2 points from the side bet, moving to 22 for the season so far, from a possible 32. I, on the other hand, had the Lions to beat the Titans, the Broncos to beat the Panthers, the Packers to beat the Jaguars, and the Texans to beat the Colts. It's another four pack for your boy Paul Williams. It's 4 points. He keeps his streak alive. 3 consecutive weeks where 4 out of 4, 25 points from a possible 32 for the season. It's looking very nice as we stand. That's the week 8 predictions and side bet gone through. But I know for a fact that in my phone I have stats from week 8 to go through. I believe, though, you will be kicking us off with your stats that you have on your phone.
Now, I made no attempt to hide that I wasn't super enamored with the format of a couple of weeks of stats. And I don't know if you feel the same way that I do, that looking at this week's stats and going, oh, because we're in a more traditional stat format. I don't know if it's, I don't know how apparent it is, but I've taken to not reading the stats, which I think possibly in week 2 led to some horrible stat issues. But I do like to give it sort of a live-ish feel to them. However, today is different, and I have seen a stat in my list that, oh boy. So let's go through the thing that we do. Big thank you to the Stats Mistress for collating all of the finest stats possibly available. Big thank you to Nate Davis of USA Today for doing the heavy lifting. This is NFL Week 8 stats. And there's a few, and some of them are just, we're going to start off with National Tight Ends Day, which I do wonder if maybe there's a way we can change the name of that, because I get it, but now falls on the 4th Sunday of every October. Unofficially begun in 2018 due to former San Francisco 49er quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo's appreciation of all-pro tight end George Kittle. Taking full advantage of their showcase, tight ends caught 16 touchdown passes league-wide during Sunday's game. It did feel like, I know it's an unofficial thing, but it didn't feel unofficial to the NFL and the teams playing, because they were literally like, get them tight end TDs right in the bag.
So on that sort of note, there was a podcast I was listening to earlier where they said it almost felt as though whenever teams got sort of in and around the red zone, or if they were sort of in a goal to go opportunity, because of the sort of the holiday as it was, I don't know if like the offensive coordinators were maybe sort of saying to each other sort of, let's dial up the tight end packages that we've got, and let's see if we can sort of like, get those two to go through a little bit more like we would normally. So,
speaking of, my second stat is that Kelsey snagged one of those, making his first score of the season in a 27-20 defeat of the Las Vegas Raiders. Is it me that feels weird that when you're talking about week 8 to have this person scored their first of the season kind of stat? And especially, it always stands out when it's big names.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like, I don't know how that feels. Number 3, Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts had 3 rushing touchdowns in Sunday's 37-17 victory. Mental. Right. Firstly, strap yourself in, because this is going to take about a week for me to read, because let's just savor certainly the next 2 stats, because my days. Number 4 is this: the Tennessee Titans had significantly more first downs, 23 of 17, plays 71 to 47, yards 416 to 225, and time of possession 35 minutes 37 seconds than the Detroit Lions. Yet still got beat 52-14. The NFC leaders scoring all of their points in the first 3 quarters thanks to 4 takeaways and a punt return for touchdown. Pretty well sums up why the Lions are 6-1. Now, arguably, the NFL's best team, while the Titans, 1-6, might just be the worst. Per NFL media, the Lions are the first team in the Super Bowl era since 1966 to score at least 50 points while failing to pass for 100 yards. Spoilers. If I could go back and change my Super Bowl prediction, I've got a doozy of a pick. Keeping with our friends, the Lions, at number 5, we've got Lions quarterback Jared Goff. Only passed for 85 yards in Sunday's win, though did throw for 3 touchdowns. But after connecting on 12 of his 15 throws against Tennessee, Goff has hit on 83% of his passes over the past 5 games, the most accurate stretch in league history, overtaking Hall of Famer Peyton Manning's best 5-game span of 80.2% in 2008. Just number 6. There seems to be a little bit of a theme here. Detroit wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown has 5 consecutive meetings with a touchdown reception. Currently the league's longest streak in that department. He's the first Lion to have such a heater since Hall of Famer Calvin Johnson in 2011. Moving away from the Lions, number 7 is Baltimore Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson has rushed for at least 500 yards in 7 consecutive seasons, i.e., each one of his career. Just need to nip up and make sure that I've got some mouthwash after saying Cam Newton is the only other quarterback in league history to reach that plateau 7 times overall. If I'd seen that, I'd probably take that. That's like burnt it. Number 8, and my final stat for this week is running back Derrick Henry has scored a touchdown in all 8 games with the Ravens. He's become the first player in league history to reach the end zone in each of his first 8 games with a team. There is a reason they call him King Henry, and it's things like that. I believe you also have some stats to go through.
I do indeed. I always think it doesn't matter how many times I watch Derrick Henry, I'll never believe that he's a running back because he's built like a tight end or a wide receiver. He shouldn't have a running back that is that big.
I mean, it's that thing that when there are times you see him almost isolated and you go, he's not that big. And then you see him in other scenarios and you're like, holy shit balls, the man is huge.
He's just an absolute monster. So, we start my stats with Kansas City becomes the 7th reigning Super Bowl champions to follow up a Lombardi Trophy with a 7-0 start. Let's see how long that one will continue for. Patrick Mahomes became the fastest man ever to reach 30,000 career passing yards, needing just 103 games to clear the benchmark. 6 fewer than previous incumbent Matthew Stafford. The Browns, behind new starting quarterback Jameis Winston, shocked the Ravens 29-24. Winston passed for 334 yards and 3 touchdowns in his first start with Cleveland. The man he replaced, the controversial quarterback Deshaun Watson, has never thrown for as many as 300 yards in 19 starts for the Browns and has passed for 3 touchdowns for them just once. I think that was the first game this season that the Browns also went over 20 points which was not good.
Well, we had that picture in our group, didn't we? Hands up if you've scored over 20 points in so far this season, and there was like 100 teams all around the outside, and the Browns, the only team in all sports.
I believe it was every single college team. It was obviously all the basketball teams. It was.
Was it all the baseball teams as well?
No, I think there was like four. There was like 4 baseball teams, and it was like yes, but we call them runs. And then there was a couple of other ones. It was bad. It was not good reading for the Browns as well.
No.
Detroit's Jahmyr Gibbs reached 22.03 miles per hour on his 70-yard touchdown run on Sunday, the top speed reached by a running back this season, as per Next Gen Stats. The Green Bay Packers are now 2-0 with recently signed kicker Brandon McManus, who has drilled game-winning field goals at the final gun in both victories, including Sunday's 30-27 triumph over the Jacksonville Jaguars, who just so happened to be his former employer. Running back Dalvin Cook made his Dallas debut, rushing 6 times for a whopping 12 yards. He's averaged 3.1 yards per carry since leaving the Vikings in 2023. And a couple of stats to finish us. If the season ended today, it doesn't. But the AFC West would qualify for 3 playoff berths. The Broncos at 5-3, and the Los Angeles Chargers at 4-3, joining the 7-0 Chiefs. And finally, if the season ended today, it doesn't. The Panthers, with their 1-7 record, would earn the number 1 draft pick for the 2nd straight year, and technically the 3rd year overall.
Honestly, if you get in the number 1 draft pick, it's another way of saying congratulations, you're the 32nd team of the entire NFL. The idea behind it is to categorically improve your team so that come the next year, you're not in the same position. I think, it's somehow there's some sort of congratulations in order for the Panthers to be able to be consistently this bad.
It's worrying, and I think someone said that there's never been a team that's gone 3 seasons in a row. And obviously, like the Panthers didn't have the number 1 pick in this year's draft because they traded it to the Chicago Bears, but they were technically the team in possession of the number 1 draft until they traded it away. So this would be the first time that a team would finish with the number 1 pick in 3 consecutive drafts. It's concerning, isn't it? I believe that puts a nice bow on the end of week 8. We can send that to the archive. And we move on to week 9. Now, as we said at the start, sadly no guest this week, but the guest picks have been picked up, pulling double duty this week by the stats mistress herself. So thank you very much to her for providing her picks for week 9. In the book, I have the stats mistress's picks. I also have myself and Mr. Cook's picks, which we will go through right now. We did say at the start that there were 2 teams taking their bye this week. Those teams are the Pittsburgh Steelers and the San Francisco 49ers. So no game for them this week. But the remaining 15 games are as follows. We have the Thursday Night Football, which sees the Houston Texans take on the New York Football Jets. We've all backed the Texans for the win here, no surprise there. Next up, we move to the Sunday slate of games, and we open with the Cowboys at the Atlanta Falcons. Andy has taken the Falcons on this one. Myself and Leanne have taken the Dallas Cowboys. It might come as a bit of a surprise to some people, but this was a 50-50 for me. And obviously, a certain man under centre in Atlanta does indicate that I definitely can't pick that team. Next up.
I obviously appreciate that. Yeah. Not been a great season for the Cowboys so far, and yeah.
Putting it light.
Yeah, I'm trying to be, I'm trying to be a little bit more positive than I normally would be around certain teams. And I think, unfortunately, for a team not doing so well this season, going up against a team that's doing a little bit better doesn't necessarily bode well. So I had to go with it in the end.
Yeah, no surprise. Next up, we have the Denver Broncos traveling to Baltimore to take on the Ravens off the back of their loss in Cleveland. And surprise, surprise, we have all backed the Ravens to bounce back, surprisingly, with a win. Next up, we have the Miami Dolphins traveling to Buffalo to take on the Bills. Shock horror, we've all gone with the Bills on that one. We have the Saints at the Panthers. It's a consensus Saints pick. We have the Raiders at the Bengals, two teams that are very much out of sorts, but we have all gone for the Bengals on that one. We then have the Chargers at the Browns. Now, myself and Mr. Cook have both taken the Chargers on this one, whereas the Stats Mistress has taken the Browns. Obviously, liked something that she'd seen last week with James Winston. So she's back in her boy.
I think it's one of those situations where if the Browns are able to take down the Ravens, what's to say what they can do now in this situation where they've got Deshaun Watson had that whole stat of most sacked quarterback at a point and was on track to get sacked 88 times for the season. A conversation in our house was around the fact that it was definitely the fact that his team were not doing anything to protect him. They were literally like leaving the front door open. So it was a bit like, I imagine there's a possibility that team has gone, oh, we have a different quarterback who could possibly take us somewhere. So let's do our job. Let's tighten up those holes. Let's bring, they took on and beat the Ravens. So I can see, I can get it. I get it. I just think.
No, I think it makes sense. Next up, we have the Commanders taking on the New York Giants in New York, and surprise, surprise, we've all backed the Commanders on that one. We have the Patriots at Tennessee to take on the Titans. Yourself and the Stats Mister have both gone with the Patriots on this one. I have a sneaky feeling about the Titans. I think they'll get a couple more wins this season, and I think this will be one of them. Next game we have is the Bears at the Cardinals. Myself and the Stats Mistress have backed the Cardinals on this one, whereas Andy has taken the Bears. Then we've got the Jags at the Eagles. It's an Eagles sweep across the board there. The Lions at the Packers. Divisional game, could be tasty, but we all have backed the Lions. Another divisional game sees the Rams at the Seahawks. Myself and the Stats Mistress on the Rams. Mr. Cook on the Seahawks. The Sunday Night Football sees the Colts at the Vikings, and we've all taken the Vikings. And to finish off, the Monday Night Football sees the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the reigning, two-time defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs in a rematch of the Super Bowl from the COVID season, I believe. But shock horror, we've all backed the Chiefs to get there. So, 15 picks per person. No same picks, so no need for a tiebreak this week. All that is left is for myself and Mr. Cook to pick our 4 side bet teams, and then you are done for the night. You can log off, ladies and gentlemen. You can close your podcast app down, or what's more likely, move to the next episode from the Cookie Cast that you need to listen to always. So, you find yourself 3 points behind. Do you want to start us off, or do you want me to dive in first?
I'll probably take an early start. It's one of those. Normally, the most obvious is a team we've already mentioned. Just look who's playing against them. Pick them. Fortunately, this week you've got 1-7 Carolina Panthers going up against 2-6 Saints. Yeah, I'll take the Saints to beat the Panthers, please.
Oh, I thought you were saying that because you were going to avoid that one like the plague. But he's actually gone with it. He's dove straight in head first. Fair play to the man.
I have left that pick on the table before, and it's come back to bite me. So not this week. This is obviously the week where the Panthers get their second win.
Well, quite possible. I will jump straight in and take the Buffalo Bills to beat the Miami Sound Machine, and the Washington Commanders to beat the New York Giants.
You cheeky monkey.
Your next two, please.
I'll take the Philadelphia Eagles to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, that's where I was looking.
And I don't feel comfortable about this, but I will take the Kansas City Chiefs to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's potentially a numbers game. I'm not saying the Chiefs are going to walk over the Bucs. You've got a 7-0 going up against a 4-4. The Bucs aren't a pushover, but the Chiefs are largely unstoppable at this point. I honestly see them going all the way. And I don't mean to Super, I mean undefeated this season. I don't think there is a team of the 31 other teams that actually pose a threat.
Yeah, somebody be disagreeing with that. I'll finish us off then. So I need to pick my two, and then Andy will give us the last pick. So I will go for the Bengals to beat the Raiders at home. And my last pick, I'll go for the Vikings.
Mm-hmm. Kind of hoping to slide that one from out from underneath you. You took the Texans?
Nope. Texans still on the board.
Not anymore. I'll take the Texans to beat the Jets, please.
Okay,
the other one I was looking at was Chargers Browns. The reason I didn't go for that one is what I've literally already said about the fact that the stats mistress picked the Browns. I think the Browns on a good day are a team that can beat other teams. They just haven't had a good day in a long time. If that team, like I said before, if that team suddenly goes, do you know something? We could do something with this. They are dangerous. So yeah, I think that would have probably been my other pick, but no need.
Agreed. So to clarify, Andy's 4 teams, he has the Saints at the Panthers, the Eagles at home to the Jaguars, Chiefs at home to the Buccaneers, and the Texans at the New York Jets. I have the Bills at home to the Dolphins, the Commanders at the New York Giants, the Bengals at home to the Raiders, and the Vikings at home to the Indianapolis Colts. That brings us to the end of yet another Laces Out NFL podcast, ladies and gentlemen. All that's left for me to do is to thank you all, as always, for listening, watching. If this is your first time here, however, maybe think about, if you're watching us on YouTube, going and clicking that little subscribe button down there, click the bell, you'll get notifications as to when new podcasts come to you every single time. Obviously, if you're listening to us, subscribe to the channel on your chosen podcast platform. We would very much appreciate it. Thank you, as always, to Mr. Cook for joining me to go through the details of the National Football League of America. Obviously, the American Football Podcast is not the only podcast that comes to you from us here at the Cookie Podcast Network. We have the weekly football podcast that I am very much involved with. We have a monthly wrestling podcast that you might want to get involved with. There's the F1 podcast that has got a little while to go until the end of the season. And then, of course, there's the Darkest Timeline podcast that's Mr. Cook's special one that he just does of his own volition, where he opens up that brain of his and just spews forth all the musings that are going on in there. Give it a listen. It's well worth it. Thank you, as always, for coming back in for yet another week of us spouting off about a sport that's not from this country, but it's certainly played in this country very occasionally. Join us next week, where we'll go through the Week 9 games. We'll do some predictions for Week 10. There'll be some side bet action, and I'm sure there will be some stats to go through. Until then, take care of yourselves, keep an eye for each other, and we'll see you next week back here on the Latest Out podcast. Bye for now.
So there we go. What do you think of that? No guest, but we got it done, dusted, and out the door. Sometimes that's what you need from an NFL podcast. Join us next week, where I'm assured there will be a guest. Before that, before you leave us, please do consider like, share, subscribe, and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we've got social media links and an email button, and that way you can get in touch with us. That is it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thanks for listening. If you like this episode of CookieCast, please like, share and subscribe.